Today on CityCast Boise.
Oh my God.
Oh
no. James Bond, acid lakes, scalded skinny dippers, and coffee, coffee, coffee. Filmed right here in Wallace, Idaho, Dante's Peak is an eruption of disaster movie cliches and over-the-top extras. So why do Frankie and me still kind of love it? It's Tuesday, February 28th. I'm Emma Arnold, and this is what Boise's talking about. Hi, Frankie.
Hey, Emma.
So we both love movies, and we've been talking about watching some movies that are based in Idaho about Boise, but there's not really a ton to choose from.
Hollywood doesn't like us, I guess.
I guess not, yeah. So we chose this movie. It's a little questionable. It came out in 1997, 26 years ago in February. We both watched it. We're going to be talking about it. It is Dante's Peak, which some people maybe don't know was filmed here in Wallace, Idaho. Let's start with the facts. Okay, so it's filmed in Wallace, Idaho. You know a little more about this than I do. Tell me about Wallace.
Yes. Okay. So Dante's Peak, fictional town, but like they don't actually even say Idaho at any point. Technically, I think they're saying that it's in Washington State, which is clearly a reference to Mount St. Helens, which erupted in 1980. So in the Panhandle, it's east of Coeur d'Alene, really close to the Montana border. It has this, really long history of silver mining. And then there was the Big Burn, which was one of the largest wildfires in history that happened in 1910. I'll talk about that later because there's a connection to the movie later on that I can't wait to talk about. I totally nerded out about all this stuff.
Of course you did. Of course.
Of course. Totally on brand. And Wallace is, but these days it's like really sad. It's a tiny population now. The population decline was rapid once the mines closed up. There's like 800 people that live there now. Lots of old buildings. It's beautiful, though. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Stunning area. Yeah, yes. Beautiful.
Yes. And so they decided to film a volcanic explosion movie, a disaster film, and they picked Wallace because of that beauty, the natural beauty that was around. And there are some places that were filmed that you can spot in the movie, which is kind of fun. But the actual mountain that blows up was, spoiler alert, it blows up.
This is not good. This is not good.
It was special effects. So you're not going to go up to Wallace and see that mountain or anything like that.
And when did you see this? And do you remember seeing it as a kid?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I do remember seeing it. I remember watching it on VHS. So I didn't see it in the theater, but I watched it on VHS, rented it with one of my best friends from childhood, watched it in her dark basement, and I was terrified. Because I was like in elementary school, like coming up on junior high, but I was just like, I would get definitely affected by movies and was freaked out by disaster films, but also they were just of that era. Like disaster movies were such a thing in the 90s, so we had to watch it. So that's my memory. What was yours?
Well, like you said, disaster movies were a big thing, and they always seem to come out in twos, So
right.
Dante's Peak came out at the same time as Volcano, just like, there were two asteroid movies at the same time.
Armageddon and
Deep
Impact.
And Deep Impact. You always had two, and I cannot explain this to you, but for some reason, I remember being extremely excited for this movie. And I saw it in the theater, and I remember seeing it in the theater, but I can't imagine that teenager me was super fixated on this movie. And yeah, I remember seeing it and I remember liking it at the time.
Okay.
Enjoying it.
Yeah.
Not thinking it was a spectacular movie,
Sure.
but liking it. So when I went back to rewatch it, I don't know if you had the similar experience. I was really floored by how bad it was. It is so remarkably
on the floor. Yeah.
bad. I mean, honestly, and I love bad movies. I say that as something.
Sure.
I love to watch a bad movie as much as I like a good movie. I love to point out the bad things and complain. This was so bad.
It was so bad.
Run us through the plot real fast for people who haven't seen it yet.
Yes. Okay. So Harry Dalton, he is played by Pierce Brosnan, who was just, coming off like the Bond movies and stuff, like height of his career in the late 90s. He is a ruggedly handsome geologist with the USGS. He, of course, comes to Dante's Peak, to the small town, which had just been named the second best town in America and was receiving some big award by Money Magazine. But he's there because the mountain, they're kind of concerned about it. There might be some issues with this dormant volcanic mountain that hasn't exploded in thousands of years. He meets Rachel Wando, the mayor, the woman mayor of Dante's Peak, played by
Linda Hamilton.
Yes.
Which, again, really fresh off of Terminator fame, like very much height of her career. Both of them in this movie is so inexplicable. I just don't understand it at all.
I know. There's a part of me that's just like, they maybe just wanted a movie they didn't have to think about and that they could just like go to North Idaho and like hang out for the summer, because they filmed it in the summer of 1996 and hang out at Lake Pend Oreille and Coeur d'Alene and stuff. But anyway, so back to the story. So then this mountain, he's, taking samples and he's realizing this could blow. And he has real experience because he lost his love.
Oh my gosh.
In a volcanic explosion in Colombia, and he'll never love again until, of course, he goes to Dante's Peak and falls in love with the mayor, played by Linda Hamilton. And, Linda Hamilton, she's got a couple kids. Her husband took off. Still has a relationship with her ex-husband's mother, Ruth, who will come to play later in the movie. And the town basically is kind of at odds, where there's some people who say we should take this seriously, we should evacuate and get ready to evacuate. And then other people who say, no, this will ruin the economic prospects of our lovely little town if people think that a volcano could explode at any moment. Well, we know what happens.
Yeah. Volcano explodes.
Yes.
Hijinks ensue.
Yes, geologist hijinks ensue. And it was quite the ride. Quite the ride.
Quite the ride. I'm going to talk about a couple of my favorite scenes. In the beginning, when they're introducing Linda Hamilton's character, we don't know she's the mayor yet. She's a mom. She's getting her kids ready. She's frantic. She shows up down to this Pioneer Days.
Yep.
And they say that the crowd has been waiting an hour and a half for her to accept an award. What kind of person is this mayor that she, like, her kids are like dinking around, she's dinking around, and then she's like, we got to get going. And then she's an hour and a half late to accept the runner-up prize for best town in America.
Yes.
And she like grabs the award and then like makes a quick speech. And I'm like, people waited an hour and a half?
Well, she had to put her pearls on, which I thought was really interesting. And probably a weird wardrobe choice for a small town mayor in North Idaho in 1997 to wear pearls. I don't know. Maybe there's some that do wear pearls.
No, every aspect of the movie was, we've never been to Idaho. We do not know anything about a small town and who would be in charge and what that would be like. Yeah, her putting on those pearls was like a very interesting moment in the thing. I also really enjoyed, there's a moment where Pierce Brosnan's boss is telling him, Paul is telling him like that they're not going to shut down the town and blah, blah, blah. But then he says, you're the best guy I have. You're the best geologist out there. And I'm like, I just think that's such a funny, like, that's usually in like an action movie, a person is like the best soldier or whatever, but he's the best geologist in America. Which is funny later when he drives a car across lava and is shocked that the tires catch on fire.
The tires explode when he drives across lava.
Not a deep pool of geologists to pull from if he's the best in America. And he's truly, genuinely shocked when the tires catch on fire. He's like, nobody saw this coming. Like, well, maybe the second best geologist in America could have seen that. I really enjoyed that.
I also love all of the geologists in general. Those characters are so specific and so funny. There's like the nerdy computer guy who's obsessed
Manic
with
Pixie Dream Girl.
Yes, Manic Pixie Dream Girl. The stiff, but also the guy who loves Harry and says that you're my best guy, the best geologist, but still then completely undermines Harry's recommendation recommendations for the town to get ready to evacuate. It's like, is he really that good?
My favorite scene in the whole movie was there's a back and forth between two characters who are in peril, and they're yelling to each other, and their names are Terry and Harry. But they keep saying Terry and Harry over and over, and they're like, Terry, run! Harry, help! Terry, come here, Harry. And it wasn't on purpose, but it was so absurd and so funny. I was dying laughing. And then my runner up is the scene where, for a little comic relief, so the whole movie is so 90s, right? It's so deeply rooted in that. But the mayor owns a gas station / deli / coffee shop, and she has a cappuccino machine. There's a character who at one point says, coffee, 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 cappuccino, Java.
Yes, it's coffee time. Coffee, 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 coffee. Cappuccino. Java. Yes.
And when we were watching it, my husband Alex paused it and was like, oh my God, my mom used to say that all the time.
Wow.
When I was a kid, she would always be like, coffee, 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 cappuccino, Java. He thought it was just something she said, and he realized that she'd been quoting Dante's Peak.
Wow.
And he was totally like, what the hell? Why was she saying that? So we were cracking up over that. So that had to be my runner-up, because my mother-in-law is so lovely, and I just thought that was super funny that she's been quoting Dante's. I wonder if she knows.
For 26 years, has been quoting Dante's Peak. Wow. Maybe the only person who is, and I love that so much.
I know. I love that.
It also cracks me up that the coffee shop is open from 8 to 9, like 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. What small town has a coffee shop that's open all those many hours?
Also, as somebody who was literally growing up at that time in small Idaho towns, the word cappuccino was like a dirty word.
Totally.
Like a small town in Wallace, Idaho did not have a cappuccino machine. And it shows like people in town coming in to get a cappuccino. I'm like, you're out of your mind. And also, I mean, we should say Wallace itself is a bit of a character in the movie. You know, they do that. Like, what are some of the fun little locations where they shot?
Definitely, you can tell it's in downtown Wallace if you've ever been there, ever go. The old historic buildings, given Wallace's history, you can definitely recognize that. The high school, I'm pretty sure, the auditorium where they have the meeting with the townspeople and they say, stay calm. And everybody does not stay calm.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. Please just stay calm.
That's a good one. And then you probably noticed there was like the mine, which will play into the plot. That's how they, Harry and Rachel and their two kids and Ruffy the dog, survive the volcano by going deep into the mine that the little boy has like saved some crackers. And I was like, I hope there's gushers down there for you to eat in 1997. I did see there's a Reddit thread. Did you see this of people talking?
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah.
Locals talking about this experience because it took over their town in the summer of 1996. And of course, it's probably like the biggest thing that was going on that summer for sure.
Oh, yeah.
There have been other films, I should say, that have been shot in Wallace, but it was an interesting time given the star power of Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton. And there were a lot of extras, a lot of locals who got pulled in to be extras, of course. And one of the best ones is the little girl after nobody stays calm and everybody's stampeding out as the mountain is beginning to erupt.
Please stay calm. Do not rush. Do not rush the exit. Don't panic. Do not
And the little girl on the porch with her kitty, who's just crying and screaming,
sobbing.
She was a little local Wallace girl that they pulled in as an extra. And there's this great quote in a Spokesman Review article about how she got herself to cry in order to have that moment be shot. So,
that's great. I did notice the extras in Dante's Peak they're extra. They're doing so much in the background.
They are doing extra. Yeah,
so there are definitely small town people who are thrilled to be a part of something. Very great. I will say the only scene, and it felt so out of place in the movie, the scene in the mine where Pierce Brosnan is in the car and it's being crushed and he's stuck in there. I felt like that was like a genuinely scary scene in this movie that otherwise is just ridiculous, you know? And I thought that was sort of interesting. And you said that there's a little bit of a true backstory to them hiding in the mine.
Yeah, so in 1910, the largest wildfire at the time that was historically recorded by the Forest Service swept through North Idaho, Montana, and it killed a lot of people. And a group of firefighters, led by the guy's name was Big Ed Pulaski, AKA the Pulaski, which is one of the tools
Yeah,
that anybody
of course.
who's a wildland firefighter has used. He saved a bunch of his men. He was leading them and the fire was bearing down on them. And he led them into a tunnel of a mine in Wallace in south of town. And he held the men at gunpoint because they were so frantic that they wanted to leave the mine.
Oh,
They thought it would be
wow.
not safe. And he said, this is how you're going to survive. And they lived. So I was like, did they know this? Because yeah, the characters, they retreat to this mine in order to survive the volcano in the very final scenes.
Oh, funny. Okay. That's cool. That's cool. What a fun little bit of history there. I wonder if they knew that.
Yeah, and you can go up to Wallace and see the little area of the mine where Ed Pulaski saved his men during the fire.
Well, we have some awards to give out. We're going to give out some awards here. So let's start with what did you think was the most believable Idaho character and the least believable Idaho character?
Okay, I've already mentioned her, and I just got to give a shout out to Ruth.
Ruth.
Grandma Ruth, who, God damn it, she's not leaving her mountain. You can't make me. This is where I live. This is where my cabin is. I'm not leaving. And the award, RIP to Ruth, who dies in the inexplicably acidic lake that geologists have come out and said that would not happen in a real volcanic explosion. But she, she's the hero. She brings them to shore and she sacrifices her life in the acidic waters in order to do so.
Yeah. Having grown up in some very dysfunctional Idaho families, the fact that she was mad at her daughter-in-law for her son being a deadbeat dad and taking off 6 years ago felt very Idaho to me. So I'm giving her most believable Idaho character.
Yeah.
And then I think I'm going to have to go with Mayor Linda here, like Mayor Rachel. The pearls, the cappuccino
Agreed.
shop, the whole business.
The Rachel from Friends haircut.
Yeah, that haircut was a good 10 years getting to Idaho.
Totally.
We didn't have that on time.
That was in 2007, maybe. And costuming, not great. The skirt, the silk shirt, the pearls, not so much. The plaid that Ruth was wearing, that was spot on.
Ruth, they nailed. Ruth, and also clearly a future anti-vaxxer. Ruth, didn't believe the science, wanted nothing to do with
this won't affect me.
This won't affect me. Not worried about it. Good luck to you. What was the most Idaho moment to you?
The payoff of the little boy getting caught in the mine at the beginning of the movie and getting, admonished by Mayor Rachel, then being the kid who can save them in the end because he's stashed his food in the mine so that when they break through, I was like, of course, kids are always playing in mines in Idaho. Duh.
Completely. Yeah. I'm going to go with in the beginning, kind of early beginning, when they're talking to the city council and the mayor and Pierce Brosnan are trying to convince them to shut down the town. And other city officials are just completely not worried.
Yep.
All they care about is keeping those dollars in the town. As somebody who grew up around some Superfund sites and things like that, I think that can be a pretty Idaho thing to just be like, we'll live through it.
Yep, we'll figure it out.
Let's talk really fast. Is it believable? Is there science? Not the acid lake, but are there other things?
Sure. So I found some old articles from when it first came out. Like the LA Times did this whole article about what do volcanologists, people who actually study volcanoes, what do they say about it? And, it's a mixed bag. There are some things that were definitely inaccurate, like the lake turning to acid, right away. Oh, we didn't even mention the hot springs moment. The hot springs. I was just going to ask you, is the hot springs, I remember that as a kid being like, wait, is this a concern? Should I be worried that the hot springs are suddenly going to become boiling out of
acid
nowhere?
Water?
Right. Exactly. That there's very little time to escape. They said that that's pretty inaccurate, that would happen. If it were to happen, it would happen immediately. There wouldn't even be a moment for the people to realize it's happening.
Oh, fantastic.
So does that make you feel better?
Oh, cool. Yeah.
There were some who also said, honestly, the most believable part was the tension between the scientists and the city and the politicians. They said that was actually pretty accurate. One of the geologists is like, so they saw that it was happening the day before, but they didn't have a town meeting until like 24 hours later? Why would they have waited 24 hours later to have a town meeting?
Yeah. When the cops are driving around like, we're going to have a town meeting. I was like, feels like you should just be like, we're evacuating.
Get out now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it was a fun watch. I'm glad we did it. And I love this. I love watching these Idaho movies and getting to see little pieces of ourselves with Pierce Brosnan in them.
I know. And I think if anybody has any idea for another movie we should do this for, do a rewatchable on, let us know, because we want to do more. Oh, another thing that is a takeaway for me, Emma. To-go bag. Have a to-go bag.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And multiple routes for getting out of town, because some routes will get destroyed in the disaster.
Yeah, you gotta have your exit plan.
Yes.
If the 90s taught us anything, it's that you need an exit plan for every kind of disaster, whether or not that could ever happen in your town or not. All right. Well, thank you, Frankie. Can't wait for the next one.
So much fun. Thanks, Emma.
And here's some news you should know. The Ada County Clerk's Office says that former City Council member Lisa Sanchez didn't violate any campaign spending rules in 2022. The Idaho Statesman reports that the county's prosecutor and clerk examined the records after the Idaho Freedom Foundation filed a complaint about Sanchez's campaign spending. Sanchez reported spending over $14,000 in campaign donations last year, more than any other city council member. One more thing before you head out. We have another Boise pro tip for you. If you have glass bottles and jars piling up around your home, there's a free way to recycle those instead of trashing them. You can drop glass off for free at one of 10 collection sites around the city, including at Albertsons on 16th and State and on Vista. Just remember to remove any lids that aren't made of glass. We'll link to more info in the show notes. Thanks for listening to CityCast Boise. We'll be back tomorrow morning with a really helpful guide to plastic recycling. Bye.